Hey guys, it's KingIntensity here, and today I'm bringing you a beast setup for the RFB. And with the recent Battlefield 4 patches, the DMRs in general are a lot better than they used to be, and some of them are even better than some of the assault rifles, so they're actually useful now. And so I thought I would go ahead and make a setup for one of them, and the one I'm doing today, like I said, is the RFB. So I'm going to go over the weapon stats real quick. Damage is 60, accuracy is 56, hipfire is 40, range is 60, stability is 39, with a magazine size of 20, and the rate of fire is semi-automatic. And that is relative to all of the attachments I have for this weapon. And just to let you know, this is a recon setup because I feel like using DMRs with a recon setup is really good because they are now comparable to the assault rifles in dealing damage from a distance, so they're actually up there, and it's really good to use with recon setup because you get the recon gadgets and stuff like that with a gun that is able to compete against the assault rifle, so it's really good for sort of an aggressive recon approach. Now the very first attachment I have is the optic, and I'm using an ACOG 4x scope, and this is probably one of the better medium to long range scopes that you can get for this gun, and overall it's just a really good looking sight, and so I prefer to use this one. Now for the accessory, I'm using the canted iron sights, and I can't tell you how many times this has probably saved my life, because sometimes the ACOG scope is too far zoomed in, and especially when you get in close quarter situations, it's just really useful to use this sight, and I've probably switched to it a bunch of times, and it's just really useful, so I strongly suggest having this while you're using a DMR. Now for the barrel, I'm using a muzzle brake, and because this weapon is not automatic, there's pretty much no penalty to firing automatic because you really can't fire automatic, so because it's a DMR, and it improves stability by reducing the muzzle climb by 25, which for a DMR is really good. And like I said, there's no automatic fire, so you don't have the disadvantage of the 30% penalty to the accuracy of the weapon. So this is a really good attachment to use, especially for pretty much every DMR you're going to be using. Now for the underbarrel, I'm using the angled grip, and the reason I use this is because it reduces the first shot recoil by 33%. And because this gun is not automatic, pretty much every shot you take is going to be your first shot because you're not firing shot after shot, so basically every shot you take, the recoil is reduced by 33%, and so that in combination with a muzzle brake for DMR is probably the best attachments you're going to find available. Now for my sidearm, I'm using the M9, and like I said in my other videos, this is probably my favorite sidearm to use, and really I think it's a little bit better than the P226. Probably not statistic wise, but it just really depends, but for me the M9 is always better. And for the optic, for the M9, I'm using a ghost ring, pretty much the upgraded version of the iron sights, and they're just really well-rounded sights, and I like to use them a lot. Now for the barrel on the M9, I'm using a muzzle brake, and usually I suggest using compensators, but I feel like with the M9, I tried using a compensator, and I feel like the muzzle brake is just a little bit better, so I suggest using the muzzle brake. Gadget 1, I'm using a radio beacon, and like I said earlier in this video, I'm using the DMR setup with the recon setup, so you get the advantage of using a recon beacon. So you might be playing Conquest or Rush or maybe even Team Deathmatch, and these are just so useful to use because you can place them really close to the objective that you're trying to attack, keep spawning back to it, and get your team in there too. So these are really useful, and they're really easy to rack up points with. Now for Gadget 2, I'm using C4 explosives, and these are just good for taking out enemy tanks or anything really, so really good for blowing out walls and just really useful in general. You can use another gadget if you don't prefer C4, but C4 is always useful, and it's pretty much like duct tape. It's just useful for everything, so I suggest using it. Now grenades, I'm using the Argo Impact, which I think pretty much everyone now is realizing that the standard grenades that you usually get when you first start out the game aren't really that good compared to the impacts, because one, they do pretty much the same damage, and you get 2 of them, and they explode on impact, so you can throw them down a hallway where you know enemies are at. They explode instantly, and you're probably going to get a kill or 2 just by using these. And like I said earlier, you get 2 of them, which is really good to have these. So I think a lot of people are realizing that the impacts are probably just the best grenades available, and so you want to be using those. And finally, for my field upgrades, I'm using the Spec Ops, and I'll tell you why I'm using these in a second, because level 1 is stealth, and basically it's makes you undetected by motion sensors except when you're sprinting, so that's always really good when you're trying to sneak up on a sniper. Level 2 is C4 explosives, and this is probably my favorite part about the Spec Ops bonus, is it increases your maximum inventory of C4 explosives to 6. And so when you get to that level 2 upgrade, you can have 6 C4 at a time, and just so you know, a tank usually takes about 2 C4 to take out, so that's 3 tanks that you can be taking out in one life. You don't have to go find an ammo pack and get some C4 and then go back again. You already have 6 on you, which is really good to have. Now level 3, it says motion sensors, and it increases your maximum inventory of them to 5, so that's useful if you want to use those. And it also increases the range of tugs and mavs by 40%, which is useful if you want to use those as well. Now for level 4, it's quick unspot, and this is a really good one too, and it reduces the time you're spotted by 2 seconds. So usually when you're using this DMR setup, you might be set up in behind some cover somewhere away from all the action, and you might just be picking off guys, and so if you get spotted, then that's 2 seconds you're not going to be spotted for once you're not being seen by the enemy, so that's always really good to have. So guys, I'm pretty much done with this setup, and if you guys have any more requests for weapons, just leave those in the comment section below. Like the video if you enjoyed the video, and remember guys, go follow me on Twitter because I need some more followers on there so I can let you guys know what I'm up to, what I'm doing for videos and stuff like that. So definitely go follow me on Twitter if you have one, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys later.